The laughter wasn't loud. That's what made it worse. It was soft, controlled, meant to be cruel only to me. Girls like her, Adam's father said, swirling his wine with contempt, they don't marry for commitment. They marry for comfort. A few guests let out awkward chuckles. Some looked away. Most pretended to keep eating. My hands were still in my lap, fingers curled so tight I could feel my nails pressing into my skin. I hadn't touched my food. Adam leaned forward with a grin, a smug, practiced smirk, and said, "She went from poverty to pearls in weeks. Not bad, huh?" Laughter again. This time it stuck. I felt it in my teeth, my chest, my bones. Even his mother smiled, as if this was all just light teasing. Something I should take as a joke. As if I was lucky to be sitting there, surrounded by crystal, white linen, and a family that never believed I deserved the seat I was in. My throat burned, not from shame, from restraint, because I could have screamed. I could have thrown the champagne in his father's face, slapped the smirk off Adam's lips, stormed out like a scene in a bad soap opera. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up slowly, straightened my dress, took the ring off my finger, and placed it carefully, silently, on the edge of the plate in front of Adam. Gasps. Whispers. A fork dropped to the floor. But I didn't hear any of it. I was already walking. No apology. No speech. No breakdown. Just silence. And then the click of my heels on marble as I left behind the most expensive humiliation I'd ever been gifted. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I already knew what their faces looked like. Shocked. Embarrassed. Still trying to compute that the girl they thought they owned had just walked out of their perfect little performance. I didn't give them the dignity of a scene. I took mine with me. My name is Jasmine Brooks. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the night they mocked my worth was the night I rewrote their legacy. Let them say I was a gold digger. Let them spread the story that I couldn't handle a joke. Let them lie. Because soon, the world would know the truth. Not just about who I was, but about what I became after that night. And, trust me, they should have never handed me that microphone made of shame. They should have never given me that silence. Because I was about to turn it into thunder. You learn to make yourself small when the world around you tells you your dreams are too big. My mother was a seamstress, proud, soft-spoken, and tired. She raised me in a one-bedroom apartment above a nail salon. The wallpaper peeled in corners. The fridge door needed a kick to shut. But the love? That place overflowed with it. I didn't grow up with pearls. I grew up learning how to stretch a dollar, how to find beauty in hand-me-downs, and how to keep your head high when everyone expected you to keep it low. I studied with a flashlight under my blanket while neighbors argued through the walls. I washed uniforms at night, worked diner shifts on weekends, and applied for every scholarship I could find. Every acceptance letter I got, I folded and placed inside an old shoebox under my bed. It wasn't pride. It was proof. Proof that I was clawing my way out. That's where I was when I met Adam. He didn't come from shadows. He came from spotlights. From a world where problems were solved with phone calls, where struggle was just a story they watched in documentaries. We met at a company gala. I was there shadowing the PR team from a fellowship program I nearly didn't get. He was there shaking hands and sipping scotch, a rising star at his father's firm. I knew his type. Glossy, charming, dangerous in the way thunderclouds are, beautiful from a distance, devastating up close. But he noticed me, asked what I was doing there, said I had interesting eyes. I rolled them. He laughed. Something about the way I didn't fall at his feet intrigued him. He pursued me. Hard. Flowers at work. Coffee sent to my co-working space. Dinners at places I couldn't pronounce. He said he admired my drive. That I was refreshing. I let him in slowly, against my better judgment. My mother warned me. Jazz, rich men like that don't love women like us. They collect us. I thought she was being bitter. Turns out she was being wise. Adam was never overtly cruel. He was polished in his condescension. You're not like other girls from your background, he'd say, as if that was a compliment. He joked that he was rescuing me from ramen and roommates. I'd laugh at first. I didn't want to seem sensitive. He was just being playful, right? Until his mother invited me to brunch and brought a bag of her old jewelry, smiling sweetly as she said, "These should help you look the part." Until his father sat across from me during lunch and said, "So, what's the real plan here, Jasmine? Secure the ring, then the assets." I smiled, bit my tongue, paid for my own lunch. I wanted to believe Adam was different. That love could be louder than legacy. That maybe, just maybe, someone from privilege could see beyond the surface. But looking back, I think he loved the idea of me. The struggle made me a good story to tell. He liked how I looked beside him, like proof of his generosity, his open-mindedness. But he never wanted me at the table. He wanted me beneath it. Grateful, quiet, owned. And I was none of those things. Not for long. The first time I thought about leaving Adam, we were sitting at a rooftop bar, and he laughed at a story I was telling, not because it was funny, but because it embarrassed me. I'd told him how I used to sell handmade bracelets in high school to help with rent. His response? "God, babe, that's so cute." Like a charity case with ambition. He kissed my cheek like it was meant as a compliment. I smiled, but something in me cracked. He always did that, wrapped insults in ribbon. Called me adorable when I was being assertive. Called my goals cute when I dared to dream too loud. But the worst part? I let him. Because when you come from scarcity, sometimes attention feels like love, even when it comes with knives. He gave me gifts, trips, showed me off to friends who whispered things they thought I couldn't hear. She's got that glow-up story energy. She better be worth the brand rub. She's beautiful, in a grounded sort of way. I laughed along, pretended not to notice, told myself love meant compromise. But real love doesn't require you to erase yourself. And Adam was slowly trying to turn me into a portrait he could hang, not a partner he could stand beside. The red flags weren't waving. They were dancing in my face. Like the prenup his father casually slid across the brunch table one Sunday. "We just want to protect family assets," he said, smiling without warmth. You understand, I hadn't even accepted Adam's proposal yet. When I looked at Adam, waiting for him to defend me, he just shrugged. It's standard. Not a big deal. It was always not a big deal when it was about my dignity. When his mother offered to have her stylist give me a class polish before our official engagement photos. When his cousin whispered, "At least she'll raise hardworking kids." When Adam said after I launched my small consulting gig, "Cute. You've got a hobby now." I told myself I was overreacting, that I had to adjust, that love required bending. But every time I bent, something sacred inside me snapped. I miss my old self. The girl who hustled, who dreamed big without asking permission. The woman who didn't wait to be introduced, she arrived. Fierce. Focused. Adam didn't kill her, but he had me hiding her. Until one night, I stayed up till 3 a.m. staring at my business analytics. My client base had doubled in the past 2 months. My consulting packages were being shared in elite circles. A woman I'd helped land her first investor emailed me. "You don't just teach us strategy. You remind us we're worth something." And I realized something profound. I'd spent so long trying to fit into Adam's world. I hadn't noticed I was already building one of my own. That's when the plan started. I didn't need revenge. I needed release. I quietly separated my finances, took my name off shared accounts, moved client communications to a private line. And then, just 1 week before the engagement dinner, I got the call. A private equity firm wanted to invest in my company. 7 figures. Up front. And suddenly, I wasn't just the girl who rose from nothing. I was a woman holding everything. And that dinner? That was going to be their final show. And my quietest exit. I didn't want a scene. I wanted strategy. By the time Adam's family booked the venue for the engagement dinner, I had already put the wheels in motion. I opened a second business account in my name only, transferred the full down payment from the private equity deal there, discreetly. No social media announcement, no confetti. Just cold, silent growth. I changed the passwords on my business platforms, Revoked Adam's email access for security. He didn't notice. He never really paid attention to details that didn't benefit him. Instead, he paraded me around like a well-groomed secret, someone to show off at functions but never empower behind the scenes. I let him. Because when you want someone to underestimate you, there's no better disguise than their own arrogance. I started keeping copies of every financial document, invoice, and client agreement in a private drive. Made sure every trace of my worth was no longer tied to his family's approval.
Even my wardrobe changed.
I stopped wearing the things his mother gifted me, those recycled blazers and handbags that whispered, "Be grateful we included you." I went back to my own style. Bold.
Sharp.
My roots, not theirs. Every move I made was surgical. Because revenge isn't loud. It's precise. The final piece was my exit plan. I secured a penthouse office in a co-working tower downtown. Paid 6 months in advance. Hired an assistant, a single mom who reminded me of my own mother's resilience. I even ordered a custom plaque for the glass door. Jasmine Brooks, CEO, Brooks and Bloom Consulting. It gleamed in silver. No pearls. Just earned polish. When Adam asked me if I was excited for the engagement dinner, I smiled sweetly. Thrilled. He kissed my forehead like I was a good girl. And I let him. Let him believe the illusion he so badly needed, that I was just the accessory to his legacy. But that legacy? It was already crumbling. Because in the week leading up to the dinner, his latest startup pitch failed. 3 investors pulled out. And one of them now funded me. He had no idea I was the reason they'd redirected capital. That my name, invisible in his world, had echoed in the rooms where money changed hands. He was too busy picking out napkin colors and dinner music. I watched him the night before the dinner as he practiced his toast in the mirror. "Jasmine is proof that love can lift someone up," he said with a smile. I nearly laughed. Love didn't lift me. I did. Love didn't build my business. I did. Love didn't walk through fire and show up with scars and dignity intact. That was all me. But I let him rehearse. Let him believe. Because the most beautiful part of walking away is letting them think they're holding you, right until you open your hand and reveal. You were never holding on to them. They were just passing through. And tomorrow night, they'd see exactly what happens when the woman they tried to shrink decides to grow, unapologetically, in silence, in strength, and on her own terms. The room was dipped in gold. Gold chairs, gold chargers, gold-trimmed name cards. Even the floral centerpieces glinted under chandeliers, like someone had ordered excessive wealth with a side of ego. I walked in alone. No +1. No apology. Wearing a fitted black dress that hugged like a secret and heels that clicked like punctuation. Heads turned. Not because I was overdressed, but because I finally looked like I didn't need anyone's approval. Adam greeted me with a practiced smile.
Wow.
"You clean up." I nodded. "I'm not here to be cleaned." He laughed. Thought I was joking. Of course he did. His mother air-kissed my cheeks like a socialite claiming territory. "Glad you wore something simple," she whispered. "Wouldn't want to outshine the family." Outshine? Lady, I built a company while you built centerpieces. I took my seat. The speeches began. His cousin talked about how Adam has always had great taste. Even as a boy, he picked the best toys. The room chuckled. His father stood, champagne in hand, ego in full bloom. "We are so proud to welcome Jasmine into our family," he said. "She reminds us that with the right support, anyone can rise." Whispers. Laughter. Eyes shifting my way. Then he added, eyes gleaming. "Girls like Jasmine know how to upgrade their lives. From humble beginnings to pearls. Isn't that right, son?" Adam smirked. "She upgraded real quick." Laughter this time didn't just tingle, it cut. And Adam? He laughed with them. That was the moment. Not the insult. Not the dig. But the smirk. The betrayal wrapped in a smile. A man so comfortable letting me be the punchline. I stood. Quietly. Not rushed. Not emotional.
Just done.
I slipped the ring off my finger. The same ring his mother once said would look more believable after you tone up your hands. I placed it gently in front of Adam's plate. Gasps circled like perfume. I turned to his father. Thank you for your generosity, I said, evenly. And your clarity. Then I turned to Adam. He looked confused, like he'd lost his place in a script. I was never yours, I said softly. You just mistook my grace for gratitude. I looked around the table. Every smug face. Every empty smile. Every eye that had once looked through me now suddenly frozen. This dinner didn't expose me, I said, lifting my chin. It exposed all of you. Then I walked away. No tears. No raised voice. Just the sound of my heels tapping through their silence. One guest stood to clap. Only one. A woman I didn't recognize. Maybe someone's date. Maybe someone who had been where I was once. But that single clap? It echoed louder than all their laughter. Outside, I took a breath. The city looked the same, but something had shifted. I hadn't just walked out of a dinner. I'd walked out of a narrative. And the girl they mistook for a decoration? She had just become the headline. It started with a text from one of Adam's groomsmen. Yo, what happened last night? Twitter's blowing up. I hadn't posted a word. I didn't need to. Someone at the dinner had recorded the moment. The father's speech, Adam's smirk, my ring landing on the plate like a mic drop in gold. By morning, the video had over 400,000 views. By lunch, it had a hashtag. Hashtag, she did not come to beg. People weren't just watching. They were feeling it. Women from around the world posted their own stories of walking out of rooms that try to shrink them. The comment sections exploded with quotes from my quiet takedown. You mistook my grace for gratitude. This dinner didn't expose me. It exposed all of you. And Adam? He tried to fight the current. He posted a selfie that morning with a caption. Sometimes people can't handle real love. The comments? Brutal. Real love doesn't laugh when you're being insulted. She was too good for you, and you proved it. Bro, just sit this one out. His startup, the one he was courting investors for, lost 3 key backers in 24 hours. Not because of what happened, but because who I was finally came to light. Someone leaked my company's pitch deck. Then an article dropped. Jasmine Brooks, the tech strategist they called a gold digger. They told the real story. My story. The one Adam never asked about. My rise. My business. My plans to fund female-led startups in underserved communities. My 7-figure valuation. Suddenly, I wasn't Adam's ex. I was Jasmine Brooks, CEO, survivor, architect of my own success. His world unraveled. I heard from friends of friends that he went into damage control mode. Jazz overreacted, he said in one interview. It was just a joke. But the internet didn't forget. And neither did I. Meanwhile, Adam's father went silent. No statements. No apologies. Just a sudden cancellation of his speaking gig at a business summit the next week. Turns out, insulting women trying to escape poverty isn't great for public image. I didn't reach out. Didn't answer calls. Didn't open emails. Just watched as the pedestal they placed themselves on cracked beneath the weight of their own arrogance. I didn't need to destroy them. They did that just fine without me. And me? I kept building. I got invited to speak at a women's finance summit. All expenses paid. Topic? Walking out with wealth, when silence is louder than revenge. The irony? The keynote was supposed to be Adam's father. They replaced him with me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about correction. They taught me I wasn't enough unless I was quiet, small, grateful.
But now?
I was loud in all the right ways. Visible in rooms they couldn't control. And I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Because once a woman sees her worth, she never forgets it again. And neither do the men who tried to laugh it away. There's something deeply powerful about being underestimated. They saw me as decoration, a girl upgraded from grit to gloss. They didn't see the spreadsheets behind my smile, the silent hustle, the nights I bled into code while they slept on silk pillows. But now, the curtain had lifted, And what they dismissed as cute ambition had turned into capital, headlines, and movement. The day my Forbes feature dropped, I was in sweats, sipping instant coffee, hair in a pineapple bun. The headline? She was called a gold digger at her own engagement dinner. Now she funds futures. They used a photo from the Women's Summit, me standing at the podium, hand midair, fire in my eyes. The article didn't focus on Adam, not even his father. It focused on the women I was hiring, the programs I launched, the fact that I'd taken every insult, every smirk, every "you're lucky to be here," and turned it into a consulting empire helping marginalized founders secure capital, confidence, and control. They wrote, Jasmine Brooks didn't walk out. She walked up, and she's not waiting for anyone to catch up. And just like that, I wasn't viral noise. I was a force. I launched a scholarship fund in my mother's name, the Myra Brooks Initiative for First-Generation Women in Tech. Applications poured in. I gave a TEDx talk called Silence Isn't Weakness, It's Strategy. I signed a book deal. The working title? Pearls Were Never the Goal. The irony? 2 of Adam's former investors reached out to me. One said, "We backed the wrong person. You were the brain the whole time." I didn't gloat. I just replied, "You finally read the fine print." Then came the email I didn't expect. From Adam.
Jazz.
I know I messed up. I was stupid. I see it now. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time. There was a time I would have replied instantly. Maybe even apologized.
But now?
There was nothing left to say. He'd already said enough that night. And I'd already answered, with my heels, my silence, and the empire I built without needing his name. I archived the message. Not to ignore it. To preserve it as proof. Proof that the girl who once sold bracelets to help her mom now wore her own name like a crown. Later that month, a journalist asked me during an interview, "What would you say to the women who are still sitting at those tables, swallowing insults in silence?" I thought about that for a moment, then said, "You don't owe anyone your silence to be seen. Walk out if you must. But don't just walk away, walk towards something greater." The clip went viral. Again. Because truth always echoes louder than shame. And I had finally learned I was never meant to belong at their table. I was meant to build my own. Longer, louder, wiser, with no room for mockery, only momentum. It arrived in a cream envelope, thick paper, handwritten, no return address. Inside, a single note. "Jasmine, I watched your TEDx talk. You've become more than I ever imagined. Maybe I didn't know how to support someone like you. Maybe I was scared. Either way, I'm sorry. Adam." I read it once, then again. And then I folded it gently and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. Not to save it, to bury it. Because closure doesn't come wrapped in apologies from men who clapped while your spirit was cracked open on fine china. It comes when you look at the woman in the mirror and no longer see the girl who needed them to see her. Closure is when you no longer need to explain why you left the table. It's knowing you built your own and filled it with voices that never made you beg for your place. The final shift came when I received a call from a national leadership summit. They wanted me as their closing speaker. The theme? From breaking point to blueprint. I said yes, not because I needed to speak, but because someone out there still hadn't found the words to walk away. And I wanted to be the voice that told her she didn't need to ask permission to rise. I stood at that podium in a silk suit the color of fire, looked out at hundreds of faces, some young, some weathered, all listening. I took a breath and began. Once upon a time, I was called a gold digger. They said I came from nothing, that I wore ambition like borrowed pearls. But they forgot. I never needed gold. I just needed space. The room was still. Then a roar. A standing ovation. Not for my past, but for what I'd built beyond it. Afterward, a woman approached me, late 30s. Soft eyes. She gripped my hand. "I handed back the ring last week," she whispered. "Because of you." And just like that, I knew none of it was wasted. Not the silence. Not the heartbreak. Not even the laughter that tried to break me. They all became brick and mortar for something real. Something worthy. Back home, I framed the Forbes article beside my mother's old sewing machine. She cried when she saw it. "You were always going to shine," she said. "Even when they tried to dim you." I nodded, because I finally believed her. And on the wall of my new office, behind my desk, there's a quote, in gold letters, unapologetically large. She didn't upgrade her life. She created it. That's my legacy. Not revenge. Not the ring I returned. But the fire I carried out with me, and used to light the way for every woman still sitting in rooms that want to keep her small. They thought they broke me that night. But what they really did was show me who I wasn't. So I could finally remember who I am.